This week was my first week on full time. Um, and I'm still catching up. And, Lee Heeb and all my former guests who haven't been on the air for 6 months, they're trying to catch up too. We just are not back to 100% normal. Just not back to 100% normal. We'll get there. But again, since it's my job to more or less know what I'm talking about, I got to do a lot of research. I got to find the primary source on a lot of things, a lot of the ideologies that drive people and drive them insane. And I would include almost the entire woke crowd in this. They haven't a clue really why they're ticked. They're just all full of emotion. They saw that awful video of George Floyd. And by the way, that was a life-changing video. But the response is not to go screaming down the street and punish people who had nothing to do with that. Now, I know you want to, I know all the woke want to indict white people as a whole and systematic racism. And by the way, I don't believe in systematic racism. I don't believe in critical race theory. Don't believe in any of those things. Those things are just a way to, are not the truth. They're a way to achieve the ultimate goal, which is reparations and court packing. Who ever thought we'd get to a place where the president of the United States and his party is actually considering packing the Supreme Court? Can you imagine if the Republicans had ever proposed something like that? They never would, by the way. They suffered under liberal Supreme Courts for years. George Bush the first, George H.W. Bush, appointed a liberal Supreme Court justice, and he paid the price for it. He was a one-term president. Good afternoon. You're on the air at AM 1400.
Oh, yes, Dr. Merritt.
Are you Dr. Merritt or are you Dr. Heeb?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm Dr. Merritt. I got married, and you kept using my Heeb name, but now I've moved on, I think, from that. So
that's fine. Hey, Merritt, sounds good on you. Well, congratulations. You've been married for a while, though, haven't you?
Yeah, we had our sixth wedding anniversary a couple days ago on Mother's Day. So
I'm way behind then. Okay. Dr. Lee Merritt is a libertarian, and she works in the Omaha area. She's an orthopedic surgeon and a distinguished commentator. I haven't talked with you since late in October.
I know
when I got COVID. And that, what is your take on COVID? I mean, that's a good jumping off spot. What do you think the government?
What part of this do you want to hear? I mean, I've been involved in this thing now up to my ears and traveling around the country, and I'm I'm one of the American frontline doctors now. I do kind of science research for them. It's kind of the thing I will say is science should be clarifying things, not making things confusing. When you can't figure things out, when things are getting more and not less confusing, there's something going on that's not right. And I will say there's a lot of things going on here that's not right. But whatever this is, now we're faced with another problem. I mean, I can tell you, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to connect and do this, but there's been treatment for this. And I treat people all the time for COVID. They don't go down for weeks. They go down for days, because if you give treatment early, you can avoid the disease that we had that we called COVID. Now, the real issue is we still don't know for sure what that was. And I'm going to tell you, it's getting crazier. I mean, I thought it was a virus that was a manipulated, lab-made modification of a coronavirus. Same thing, we had MERS, we had SARS. Those were coronaviruses too that had somehow become more deadly. This one was different though, because we could follow the patents. We knew what had happened. This is clearly had been manipulated in a lab. And then when it first came out, it looked a lot worse than it was. It looked like a virus. It looked like a virus coming across the world that was attenuating, or meaning getting weaker. And by, it really was getting weaker by even last May, we're also confused because when we're testing for this virus, we're using a PCR test that has been manipulated to make false positive tests. Now, we knew that by, February, actually March or April of last year, because
Why?
the PCR test, they were cycling it too much.
Why would anybody do that? Manipulate a test to give a positive?
Well, again, see, the problem is, and this is what people don't want to accept, is that this isn't all by accident. So if you don't accept it by accident, then you can say, well, they just screwed up. The whole world's scientists just didn't know how to do a PCR test. I don't believe that. See, I don't believe that about everything, and I don't think everyone can be wrong about everything. So if you Kerry Mullins, who developed this test, invented this test, he said it's not made for diagnosis. And he said the way we're using it is crazy. It's not meant to be used this way because it's a lab test. But Michael Yeadon, who's the former science advisor for Pfizer, said, well, if you're going to use it, you have to cycle it correctly. You can't be doing 40 and 45 cycles. Well, early on, I figured out what they're saying here is that this is a test. You can turn it up. If you want somebody to look bad and have a lot of disease, you turn it up. And you count cases as positive. You want to make it look good, you turn it down, and then you have less cases. So if you ask me why we would do that, well, let's just take this new so-called vaccine, this genetic agent they want to push on everybody. You cycle it up, you'll make everybody think, oh, the cases, and by the way, cases never before now were considered a disease. Cases are a positive test. Cases were always a disease. So they've confused us about what a case is. They've confused us about the test being positive. And now we're finding out that we can't, let me finish that point. So let's say Florida for a while. Florida had 13 labs where 100% of the tests and cases for PCR were positive. That's not a test. That's propaganda. You cannot come up with that number in reality. No test is 100% positive, or you're not testing for anything that's real. So that really matters. So here's the deal. They can manipulate the testing. Did you notice that on the magic date of January 21st, suddenly they decided they got awareness and they said, oh, we're going to cycle the tests down into the 20 zone, not the 40 zone. Well, that just made them show that the tests, suddenly we don't have the disease around now. We don't have cases showing up because the tests are down. So I would opine, why are they doing that? They're doing that to drive an agenda, a narrative. And the narrative, when they wanted everybody to be sick and they wanted everybody to be afraid, they drove the narrative up. And when they don't want that, now they're driving the narrative down because now we have vaccines. Now we have, a different administration. There's a reason to drive the narrative down.
That's right.
I can't prove that, but I'm just saying that's the potential.
Oh, I think, Lee, I think that's pretty obvious. I've been saying on this program for, quite a long time that if it weren't for COVID, Trump would have been reelected, maybe in a landslide, because nobody wanted Joe Biden. Nobody wanted Joe Biden. And they weren't. There were some passionate people around Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, but not enough to get anybody elected. And of course, Wall Street and the financiers there didn't want Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders at all. So they brought out Biden out of the stable, out of the rest home or wherever, and put him up front and pounded away on the COVID. And Trump's actions, Trump was his own worst enemy, of course, but they pounded away on COVID, and it being Trump's fault, and thousands and thousands of people were dying just because of Trump, and they won the election. That's it. They'll lose in the midterms because nobody cares for these people. I mean, Nancy Pelosi isn't an attractive figure. What, Chuck Schumer's a sex symbol? I doubt it. Or Joe Biden. He does the worst Clint Eastwood impersonation I've ever seen. Systematic racism. Oh God, it half scares me when he gets that look on his face. He looks like Jim Carrey in The Mask.
But you asked what the big point here is, and I'll tell you. Here's what I think. It's very clear to me they really, 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 really did not want us to talk about treatment. They don't want you to believe there's any treatment, because you know what? If you want to support a $69 billion vaccine industry like the flu vaccine industry, you can't have a treatment. Treatment is always better than a vaccine. So they really want to promote the vaccine. They want you to take this vaccine, which is not a vaccine. They want you to do this. It's an experimental, unapproved genetic agent. We're seeing horrendous problems with this, but that's what they're pushing. And they're pushing it at the cost of people's lives and unknown cost of future lives. And they're pushing it by denying that there's any treatment. And that's the big picture here. I can't say it any other way. And I'm not backing away from this anymore, because the problem is this is really a world busting problem we're in right now. You know, it's one thing to roll out a drug that turns out to cause birth defects like they did with thalidomide.
Yeah.
But can you imagine rolling out thalidomide and forcing people all over the world to take it without adequate trials and then have all that? I mean, that's essentially what we're in right now. I'm hoping it's not that bad, but you know what? This is insane to, people can call me crazy. All I'm asking for is don't roll out something on the whole world without long-term trial on a smaller number of people. And they did not do that. You know, they're giving you genetic material like RNA. You know, we don't know how long that lasts in the body. We don't know. And people, look, here's how the vaccine actually works, these mRNA and the DNA. They actually produce the COVID spike protein. This is probably what's causing the disease of COVID, is the spike protein subunit S1, which is the thing that causes all the problems that you see in the disease. It's also causing problems in the vaccine, but the way it works is we're not giving it to you like a little shot of the S1 subunit. What we're doing is they're giving you genetic material, goes into your cells, makes the spike protein in your cells. Every cell that it can get to, it will make spike protein in, and that spike protein will become part of the cell wall of that cell. And then they hope your immune system will come, recognize it, destroy that cell, and then you'll have immunity. Well, good luck with that, because in the process of creating many cells that are the spike protein, some people's immune system aren't good enough. And in Israel, for example, at a time when 12.5% of people were vaccinated, 51% of the COVID deaths, the disease of which we're trying to vaccinate you against, was in the vaccinated people. In other words, if vaccines didn't make it worse, it should be 12.5% across the board. But if you were over 65 at the time they looked at this is independent analysis by a couple of Israelis in France at Marseille University. When they looked at this, if you were over 65 and you took the COVID Pfizer vaccine in Israel, your risk of dying of COVID went up by 40 times. Now, again, we've never seen anything like this. So there's a push here. And this isn't about Biden. It isn't about Trump. At this point, it's something else. And
what do you suspect?
Well, I think look what it's done. It's crashed economies. It's going to centralize power. They want you to get a vaccine, to get a passport, to be able to go down to the rodeo.
Yeah,
okay?
I know. Yeah.
To get on a plane. Israel, they can't do anything without a green passport now. Look, and here's another point to make people wonder what's going on. I was giving a talk down in Utah. I looked up the deaths in Utah with COVID, even with their inflated numbers for 2020. Okay, we all know that motorcycle people that have a COVID positive test, they're considered a COVID death, even though they died on a motorcycle. That story's out. So we know some of it's inflated. But even with the inflated numbers, the death rate in Utah was 0.04%. So you had a 99.96% chance of surviving COVID last year in Utah. And guess what? The same number is in Canada. The Canadian overall Canada death rate was 0.04%, same as Utah. But guess what? In Utah, they're open. There's no mask mandate. You can travel. You can do whatever you want. The businesses are reopening. They're having restaurants. I have beautiful restaurants down there. I gave a talk to 500 people or more in a big auditorium. It was just one big group, nobody wearing a mask. In Canada, they've locked the place down. You got Canadians coming to the border with an SOS, like light flashing thing that they're trying to get our attention to come rescue them because they're prisoners in Ontario. What is this about? It's not about medicine. It's about control. So this is the big picture, and I can't look at it any other way.
Well, Lee, I might.
Medically, it doesn't make sense.
I might say that COVID does kill people, thousands of them. What should we do?
Yes. Well, we should treat them appropriately.
And that would be how?
Let me tell you, I didn't make this up just myself. I looked at the numbers from around the world. They had a COVID study around the world. In those countries that use hydroxychloroquine early and often, they had a 78% less death of COVID. In New York State, I looked around in August of last year. I looked in the worst death rate in the world. It was in New York State, got the award by Fauci for the best handling. Worst death rate. Now, still, it was less than 2%. It was 0.17% death rate. But guess where the best death rate in the world was?
Where's that?
In Uganda. Uganda. Now, the difference is, in Uganda, you are free enough to walk down to your corner store and buy hydroxychloroquine over the counter and take it at the first sign of a significant illness. Whereas in New York State, they were forced to get on respirators and do all these crazy things that turned out not to be the right treatment. So Dr. Zelenko came up with the same number I did. 40% of our deaths in America were in nursing homes. If you subtract that, that's 250,000. We could have prophylaxed them with 2 tablets a week of hydroxychloroquine. And we could have treated other people better. We could have saved at least 250,000 lives last year. And in other places where they, again, it's not just hydroxychloroquine. That's just one drug. But that, all around the world, it's not just Uganda, all around the world where they used it early, within 5 days of symptoms, you had a dramatically better result. Now, we've also learned since then about ivermectin. We got, doxycycline, azithromycin. There's a whole panoply of things. And there's even now a psychiatric med that seems to be absolutely fabulous. It's stopping people from having the overshoot of inflammation. So we're learning things all the time about treatment. And what are they doing? Oh, also vitamin D level. It turns out if your vitamin D level is over 30, your chance is less than, it's 4% or less. If you're already hospitalized for COVID and your vitamin D level is over 30, you have a 96% chance of walking out of there. That was an Indonesian study. And it's consistent around the world. Vitamin D and zinc levels are key. Why did the CDC not tell us this? In other words, they haven't told us the simple things that could have helped that we've known for decades. We've known about vitamin D and viruses for decades, by the way. That they didn't bother to tell us that, and that was cheap and effective. Scotland gives free vitamin D to its people because they know it makes a difference. They've done it for a long time. The CDC was wrong about everything. And I'm just going to, I can ask your listeners, do you think that's an accident? Are these guys, these smart guys, really wrong about everything? They were wrong about the masks. They were wrong about the death rate. They're wrong about everything. Now, admittedly, at first, I thought it was going to be worse than it was. But it quickly changed. We watched it. If you were plotting the numbers, you could see early on, like by March, you could see that this thing was changing down and that it was going away. So, and also, by the way, the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, the Russian senior geneticist in Moscow, they both said by May, looking at their own populations using sophisticated tissue immunity tests, 30% of their population was almost already immune. And the final thing is, in Sweden, 1.9 million school children last year did not miss a day of school, did not wear a mask, did not social distance, and not one died. What are we doing to our children, and why?
Dr. Lee Merritt is our guest. Just in the last couple of minutes we have left, what sort of disease do you suppose, or crowd madness, has overtaken young woke people? They seem to be out of touch with reality.
Well, part of it is Stockholm Syndrome.
Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, when you see a 25-year-old in their car with a mask on by themselves, that's or in a shower, maybe, that's Stockholm victim, okay? And I had a psychiatrist explain this to me. The first thing they do when they want prisoners, or they want people to be compliant, they want you to act in a certain way. So you're captors, like the captors of that famous case, the Stockholm Syndrome. You isolate people, you monopolize their perception. Think lockdown and CNN, okay? We're going to die, we're all going to die, don't go out, you got to wear a mask, you have to do everything that Fauci says, whatever. And then you confuse them. And that was other things. Oh, no, you don't have to wear a mask. Oh, yeah, you just wear it to keep your hands off your face. Oh, no, wait, it's just a talisman. These are literally the quotes that they had. Oh, no, you have to wear several masks. oh, you can get out of his mask if you get the vaccine. Oh no, you still take the vaccine. You got to get out. It makes people afraid. And then you add confusion and get anxiety. And people will do anything to get out of that anxiety zone. So what they're doing is, if Fauci says to wear one mask, I'll wear 10. If he says stand 6 feet apart, I'll stand 20 feet apart. You know what I'm saying? That is Stockholm syndrome. So we've got a generation that we've created that. And we've created little children with fear and not courage going into the world. We've made them inchoately afraid of things by forcing them to wear a mask they can't understand. And it didn't help because they didn't die. Your chance of a child dying of COVID is less than struck by lightning. That was from Oxford University.
Well, some of these emotions that are being expressed and some of these ideas that are being expressed are childish. Some of these attacks and personal attacks, they're childish. They really, I mean, it reminds me of little girls picking on each other when we were about in the 6th grade, or little boys too.
Right, but that's the in crowd. Okay, you have the in
crowd. That's the in crowd. I'm in big trouble.
Right. No, but that's the other thing is that's cult behavior.
So that is a little bit of cultish.
This is acting like a cult. It's not acting like science. It's not science. This is a cult. And the cult thing is a great way to divide people, again, so you can centralize power.
Well,
that's my thinking.
No, I think you've said a lot in that regard. I think there is a certain amount of cult-like behavior where everybody must think and feel the same. Part of the reason for the humorlessness of these people, and Billy Crystal, one of my favorite comedians from when you and I were young, Dr. Merritt, has said that the woke culture is killing comedy. It's making people so that they don't want to laugh at anything. And I guess we're supposed to have that attitude because black people are suffering and they want us to feel as they do. I see black people around town and they're having fun. The ones that are ticked off are the white people, are the young white people who just can't get over themselves. I mean, it's remarkable.
Right.
I mean, excuse me, your dad was a dentist. You're not oppressed, for God's sake. Anyway, Dr. Merritt has been our guest. I look forward to talking with you again, Lee. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
See ya.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Great to talk with Lee Merritt again. I haven't talked with her since she was Lee Heeb. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The news is next. KVFD, Fort Dodge, Iowa.
It's everything digital on the Kim Komando Show every Saturday from 11
the council meetings anyway.
Who is that? Mark?
Yeah, I think so.
Brother Mark. Huh?
Brother Mark.
Yep. Does a lot for the city.
He's you're older than he is, isn't he? Aren't you?
No, he's my little brother.
That's what I said. You're
Younger
older than
brother.
he is. Yeah,
Younger
Mark-
brother now. I'm not too sure he's littler than me in stature anymore.
He's probably the
but
biggest. in
he's
that-
taller than me for sure.
He's taller than everybody. I mean, David and Denny. I mean, they're about the same size. They're not. I got to get Kev in the picture. Here, I'm sorry. By the way, you can watch this. You can watch this on video on Facebook.
You don't need me on there. That
All right, look at
That's-
that dude. Oh, hell, dude, already no. Absolutely. Yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, there you go. Is that the dude or what? Is that Jeff Bridges?
Hi guys.
Anyway, a little earlier today, I was talking about, and there'd been another series of things that have happened. The woke culture.
Oh yeah.
Are any of your kids? I mean, I realize your kids are adults. now.
Actually, all my kids are adults and they're all Republicans.
Are they really?
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought you just said you had some liberal in there who was trying to sneak in there and be a liberal. or
I
something.
don't think so. I have some in my family, but my kids, no, they're pretty
Well, they need to
firmly
be
on the right.
identified, don't they?
Yeah, no, they're pretty firmly on the right. I'm happy to report.
Hey, you know that whole woke culture and the whole you're on my side or you're not. That's some kind of sick fascism, as far as I'm going to. You know, people are more complex than that. Will you give human beings credit for thinking for themselves? See,
Hey.
that's what they cannot allow for a person to just think for themselves and say, "I want to go this way, but not that way," and I'll go this way with you, but I won't go that way.
Well, not only do they not want you to do that, but they're also trying to take your option away
Yeah,
completely.
do not
How about those 3 poor students out at UMass? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
There were 3 young ladies that were paying $16 some odd thousand a semester to go to UMass. Well, they all 3 got booted
Whoa.
because because somebody took a picture. They were at a party off campus and they took a photo, as they do, and posted it on social media. Well, somebody screenshotted that and sent it to the college because they weren't wearing masks. They threw them out. Won't let them test because I think it's the end of the semester. From the way I understand it, they won't let them test. They cut off their access to remote learning. They basically threw them out of college and won't refund their 16 grand or 17 grand.
16 grand.
16,
hell,
17 grand because they weren't wearing a mask at a party that had nothing to do with college. Now that's bad enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, it was 3 girls, and they were all honor students. But imagine if that would have been a dude. They don't do that to guys because guys would want to find out who the snitch was. Right?
Right.
I mean, imagine one of your fellow class, your fellow students turning you in. That's what we've come to, and that's insane.
Hey, I've been talking about Pavel Morozov because I know that's going to throw you for a loop, but
yeah, I don't know that.
well, I compare seriously, and I think we need to study this, the woke movement with Stalinism in Russia in the 30s. Now, Pavel Morozov was a 13-year-old boy. He was a member of the Young Pioneers, a Stalinist activist group.
Russian citizen.
Russian citizen, yeah. And people were encouraged to turn in their relatives, parents turn in their children, friends turn in friends, all those sort of things.
We're doing that here.
And then that's exactly what we're doing. In Soviet Russia at the time, you were executed for this. And here, let me tell Pavik's story. Yeah, he was a little kid. And supposedly, according to legend, it's never really been proven. The Stalinist authorities or Pelosian authorities
nice one.
seized on this rumor and made him a hero in Russia. And there were memorials to Pavel Morozov all over Russia, and he was held up as an inspiration and a fine example to young people of Russia. What he did was apparently, and again, this is all rumor; it was never really proven. Pavel overheard his parents complaining about communism. His parents were complaining about communism, not so much communism, but they were complaining about Stalinism. Now, they're two different things, really, not far apart, but they're two
Right,
different
right,
things.
right.
They were complaining.
Stalin was a Marxist.
No, Stalin was a thug, really, but he was supposed to be a communist. Yeah, he was
Okay.
supposed to be a communist. Anyway, so Pavlik overhears his parents complaining about Stalinism, and he tells the authorities. The authorities then take away his parents and execute them. Now, Pavlik, 13 years old, there's the Stalinists arrived to celebrate him and say, what a great thing that you did by having your parents killed for criticizing
Wow.
communism and Stalinism. Well, the relatives of his parents and of his were outraged, and they supposedly took the boy into the woods and killed him. That's what made him a martyr. Again, none of this has ever really been proven, but if you were told to accept this story in the old Soviet Union in the 1930s, by God, you better do it, or you'd at least be in the gulag somewhere.
Was that just like an urban legend or a propaganda?
Let me say again, in Stalinist Russia in the 1930s, the truth didn't matter like it doesn't in the United
makes
States.
zero difference now.
Yeah, that's exactly
Unbelievable.
that's the point I'm trying to make. That the truth today makes no difference anyway. An accusation is enough. Let's just move forward to sentencing, which we have not got around to physically executing people yet. But I would. But we're these little people. They gleefully ruined somebody's life. For the most minor.
Right. Well, matter of fact, I've been searching online for applications in South Carolina. They are looking at, and maybe have already passed approval of using the firing squad as a form of execution.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I might apply for that job. I'd want to see what the backlog was and see what my job security was going to look like, but before relocating. But
now I just want to get back to Morozov just for a moment. He was a real person. He was a real young man. There's one picture of him that exists. He's quite young and he looks malnourished, probably because Stalin collectivized the farms.
Right.
But he's a real person, and supposedly there are records somewhere.
Still living?
Oh, no, this was the 1930s, Kevin.
Oh, in the 30s.
Morozov was,
well, my mom was born in the 30s, and she's still with us. So.
Well, I just said that Pavlik was murdered by his relatives.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, you did. You did.
Are you high? Are you
no,
high on here?
Short-term memory loss. I had the COVID, it's a brain fog.
Right.
And boy, that's going to bail me out of a lot of things.
You and I have both been stoned. We've talked about it.
Of course,
1970. Yep. But I just can't imagine Mark Crimmins stoned. I just,
I don't. I can't comment on that because I have no idea. I don't know what Mark did.
See, now you're dropping it out there.
What do you mean? No, I can't. No, I'm not going to do that. I have no idea what Mark's experiences were with that.
Too many years separate you and Mark, do they?
A couple or three, but I went to work. In high school, that's a big differentiation in age. And then after high school, I went to work, and when he graduated, he went on to college.
Sure,
and, so.
And he's done a good job over there at the city.
Yeah, he has done a good job. He's a great attorney, and he's an asset. He's an asset to the city and to the college, and at least I feel anyway. I'm biased, but
well, he's not my brother, and I'd say the same thing. He's always been a straightforward guy. He doesn't yell at you, but he'll tell you the truth bluntly.
Right.
And
right.
I appreciate guys like that. I come from the area when sugarcoating things was considered BS.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I will say this about my brother, as an attorney, you and in the positions that he's in, like at the college and stuff, you make a lot of friends, but you make some enemies as well. But he's an attorney with some morals and integrity, and he wouldn't take cases that for the money. I mean, it's something he had to believe in, or he didn't do it, and I commend him for that.
Oh, I don't doubt that of it.
Proud of him.
I was just,
Very proud of him, actually, as my brother.
I'm just kidding around.
Yeah, I know you are.
I know a few members of your family, not well, but they're all good folks.
Well, thank you. We
I
appreciate that.
I used to run into Dave. Dave's the oldest brother, right? Not
He's
the
my oldest. Yep.
Yeah, and you have a sister that's older.
I have the oldest in our family is my sister Karen, but
right who was married to Dale, who passed.
yeah.
See,
yeah.
now there should be a lesson to you right there, Kev. You should wear a mask just in Dale's memory.
No, I don't think Dale would agree with that. But boy, we miss him. A great guy, healthy guy. Died during the COVID crisis, and I'd say as a direct result of COVID.
Kind of spooked me. He's close to my age, and I have diabetes too.
Well, see, it just makes no sense. This whole thing makes no sense. Him, which is a pretty healthy, guy. I would say real healthy guy. He had manageable diabetes, but I mean, he was a healthy guy. He died from it. Yet him and my mom, my 88-year-old mom, were in the hospital at the same time. My mom survived.
Oh,
and my mom has heart disease.
Oh,
so
no.
yeah. So I don't know. I nothing about this whole thing makes any sense to me. But
It doesn't, does it?
no.
The whole
But
thing's crazy.
as far as the masks go, I've had COVID. Excuse me. I have over the past year, I've quarantined twice. I've had COVID, and I'm fully vaccinated.
You had COVID as well?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm fully vaccinated as well. So no, I'm not going to wear a mask. I think if it comes down to us folks that pose zero risk to society, to put away our masks and make that stand, I think that's what we have to do.
Mhm.
So that's the philosophy I've adapted.
Yeah. I think I said this on the podcast. We were talking about your brothers. I stopped in the Grundy Center truck stop about 6 weeks ago, and I went around the corner, and there was a guy with his back to me, and his coat said Crimmins Welding on the tail.
Oh yeah.
It was Dave.
Yeah. That's his son's company.
Yeah. Mike Crimmins.
Yep, Mike. Yep. Hardworking guy, and he's done really well.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. That's just, as soon as I figured out you had to go to work for a living and work pretty hard at it and maybe work a little extra, my life got better because,
well,
I was
that's
in a
where it
marijuana
works.
cloud for 5 years.
Speaking of that, I saw today that our good Governor Kim is bailing out of all of the unemployment and the government programs that subsidize the unemployment
fund. Yeah.
And that needs to be done. And she did that because there's a serious lack of workers of the workworkforce.
Don't start telling me people are too lazy to go to work.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're making. She didn't say that, but
close.
Well, I think more to the point is that you, as a government, you can incentivize people not to work. Well, you can, and that's what it's doing, and it's having a.
You and I get Social Security, don't we?
Well, yeah, I had to work 50 years to get it, and to get it early, I had to sacrifice a portion of what should be mine. So that's not right, but anyway, it's nice to have that.
Yeah, it is,
Nice.
and it was necessary at the time. But I when I heard Governor Reynolds start talking about a disincentive to work and people don't want, she seemed to imply that people were too lazy to work. That's the Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein position.
Well, but you can't deny that is, there are people that are.
Oh yeah.
That
Oh yeah.
fit in that group, but it's not that. I think it's just that. Why would you go to work when you could make more money not working? But that's hurting business. There's businesses are dying to hire people, and there isn't anybody coming in and applying. So,
what do you think about a minimum wage increase, $15 an hour? What do you say?
Playing right into that,
Mm-hmm.
I think that.
Because you're an employer.
Look what's happened here. Just like in this situation, if the market is good, for the employee. In other words, there's a shortage of workers. The wage goes up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it goes up. It's the free market concept. But when you apply that to to employment, wages go up because you're fighting for employees, and that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
So if they $15 an hour in Fort Dodge right now, that's not a very good job.
Yeah.
I mean,
It isn't,
most
no.
employers are paying considerably more than that entry level.
Well, fine. I'm just suggesting it $15 an hour as a minimum wage rather than $7.
Well, you know,
it's kind
but-
of skimpy.
Well, and that hurts entry level and high school and kids that need jobs.
Because companies won't take less profit. I understand. So they're going to.
I don't know if that's it, Mike, or
Oh,
if they
come
just
on.
can't afford it.
Kevin, companies are about making money. Come on. Why do I have to tell you that? You grew
No,
up.
I understand that, and I agree with you that that's true, but I don't think that that's the issue, though.
And what's the one major expense that companies have that they can control?
Their employment costs,
That's right. Labor costs.
their labor costs, but it's not just what they're paying. It's not just the hourly wage; it's the benefits. Now, let me give you an example if you're interested. This is when I was still working. Back when Obama was in office.
Ah, your man.
Oh boy. When he was in office, he made it to the point where in what I used to do, it was a high labor. It was a hard job. It was hard work. And what he did, and you would have to, and we were working with the public, so you would have to screen a lot of employees. I mean, some worked, some didn't. Some worked out, some didn't work out. But you couldn't hire full-time employees and then figure out that, well, your heart's not in it, you're not a good employee, and you're not working out. You couldn't do that. So as a consequence, employees were hiring temps.
Sure.
Because it was the only way they could. Well, that's not good. That's not good for society. That's not good for working people. That's not the best case scenario. But he made it that way because of the unemployment. He extended that where you might be stuck for 90 days of unemployment,
Right.
and you're happy to pay that through your screening process, or you hire 5 guys and maybe 2 of them work out and 3 of them don't.
Sure.
Well, then you could sever your ties, pay their unemployment for the 90 days or whatever. Well, when you make that a year and a half and you have to pay their insurance for a year and a half, that it wasn't the wage. It was those costs that you couldn't absorb as an employer.
Right.
And people don't understand that. It's the hidden costs that employers pay to have their employees per employee that made it to where they couldn't, it disrupted the employment process. So that was not good. And it was bad policy. And when employers fight against things like, the minimum wage or, increased unemployment and the increased healthcare coverage because of Democratic policy, it's not wages. It's not about the wages. It's about those costs that continue on for a year and a half after you got rid of a bad employee.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes a huge difference. And what I learned through that was that how it affected the whole process of employing people, and it made it almost impossible. So you resort to hiring temps, which is no benefits.
Yeah.
Went
through that way. Even in radio, they tried to hire you as an independent contractor and then tell you what to do,
Right. Yeah. Well, you can't legally do that.
No, you can't. But
I
mean, it didn't happen at this radio station, but it's happened in a lot of
Oh, sure. Well, it happens in a lot of industries too.
yeah, they try to pull that down. We were talking earlier about changing your life or doing or a key moment in your life, or I don't remember exactly where we went there, but I'll tell you a real quick story about how I got into the radio business. First of all, I always wanted to when I was ready to, but I got out of the service and I was working on a masonry crew.
Yep.
We were
That's rough work.
That's tough.
I did that.
Tough work. Yeah. And we're up in Burt, Iowa, which is straight north of us on Highway 169.
Yep.
About 50 miles. And Burt at the time was putting in a swimming pool, and I was working on that small crew that was doing it. We were laying block. And I had
laying block or doing pans,
I was the laborer. I was the block layers. I
Okay.
was mixing mud and all that stuff.
Yep.
Anyway, I had a rip-roaring hangover. And the guy I was working with knew it, and he was supposed to be in charge. He was kind of a mean little man anyway. He was just ragging me all morning long, You can't, handle it, don't go out drinking. He was
He probably had a hangover himself, and that's why he was doing it.
he was just mean-spirited, that's all. But anyway, and it was 95 in the shade, real sultry, and I'm sweating so much because of the booze that it's just coming out of every pore. And at noon, they had a little cafe in town. I think it might have been Cunningham's, but I'm not sure. Now, and I went to that cafe and I got a little something to eat. And they had a pay phone, and I called Iowa Central. And I said, do you have radio school coming up pretty soon? Yeah, it's in the fall. And by the time, it wasn't long after that I was.
So it was something you were interested in before?
It was always.
Or
something
had you
I was
ever
into.
dabbled in it before or anything?
Not really. Actually, it was my mother's influence. She used to insist when we were little kids. And I'm glad she did it now, that we watch the news so we can have some sort of understanding. I still watch the news all the time. But she always commented on guys like Eric Severide and Walter Cronkite. They were such distinguished men. And they were back in the day.
They were honorable.
They were honorable. Not like that squirrely little Chuck Todd over on MSNBC.
And
who's that Rachel Maddow again? What is her problem anyway?
I'm not.
Yeah,
I have ideas. I have my ideas, but
I shouldn't have brought it up. But Chris Hayes too. What is squirrel? I mean, can we talk super squirrel here?
Well,
Get the
Mike,
cape
that's why we're in this situation we're in.
Why is that?
You know that. The only thing that protects us from government, besides the 44 in your closet,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that protects you from government is honest journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gone. And that's why politicians can get on. I mean, they think nothing. You remember when they'd get caught in a lie back when we were, young adults,
Mm-hmm.
they'd get caught in a lie. They were in trouble.
They were.
It cost them. Look at Dan Rather, even up to Dan Rather.
Yeah.
But now a politician can say one thing that's completely ludicrous and nobody calls them on it, or they can say one thing and do the other at the simultaneously, and they're not even called out, and that's bad. That's one of the worst things I've seen happen in the last 10, 15, 20 years is that, man, our honest journalism and honorable journalism has gone away, and boy, are we in trouble.
Yeah, I tell you, when Walter Cronkite retired, and I grew up on CBS News, I tried to stay with CBS, but they had Dan Rather then. And I started thinking to myself, man, the last thing in the world I need is to have Dan Rather looking down his nose at me. So I switched to NBC. I think it was Tom Brokaw at the time. He had just started over there. And I was there ever since. I've been at NBC News. I stayed with Lester Holt. And
did you see where NBC's not going to carry the Golden Globes this year?
NBC has turned into a real liberal network. I think that's the way they posited themselves. Because I watched a little bit of Brian Williams last night. And Brian Williams initially took over. You want to talk about getting caught in a lie. Brian Williams took over for Tom Brokaw when Brokaw retired.
Yeah.
Brian Williams then tells a story about he was overseas in a helicopter or something. And some people in a line of helicopters, and some people who were actually there said, no, you weren't, Brian. You weren't under fire. You were toward the tail end of the group, and you were never in danger. And then he had to backtrack and say, I overstayed. Well, hell, they nearly fired him. They took him off. He lost his job as.
Now, when was this?
Oh, this was some years ago, because Lester Holt had the job for a long time. But Brian Williams was off the air for 6 months. And I think they were trying to force him to quit, but he wouldn't. So they put him on late at night.
Right.
And I watched a little bit of him last night, and he's just as woke and screaming at people.
Well, you have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be if you want to be employed with any major network.
He even called some conservative an idiot, which he would never do, because he was kind of a dignified, straightforward newscaster on the evening news. Now he's calling people dummies and idiots.
Well, how does a journalist, I mean, a legitimate, honorable, honest journalist, call anyone an idiot?
I just did, I think, a few minutes ago. But listen, there's a difference between, I don't make millions of dollars, and I'm not on NBC Evening News.
Well, and you do a talk show. You're
I do
not
a
really
talk
doing.
show.
You're not. I mean, there's a difference.
I'm not a pure reporter. No.
No, and reporting news. You more opinion news, I would say, or what?
Oh, overwhelming, and I'm always clear about that. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, and I've got to get back in this habit. I always back up what I have. I always back up my opinion with fact, and
Right.
I will name my sources as often as I can.
Right.
I've gotten a little lazy since I've been back to work. This is only my 7th day, and I haven't always done that, but in the last 7 days. But I'll get back on it.
But you know that you can.
Yeah, I can do it.
You
Yeah.
can't do it. I mean, I don't think that you're seeing stuff that you don't think that you can go and maybe you don't pre-research, but you can go and get back and find your source and back yourself up.
All right, Kevin Crimmins is our guest. We're going to be back.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
to the AM 1400 KBFT Facebook page. I don't get it. I mean, I can't access it. I accessed it once this afternoon, and then I tried to go back and access it again, and I couldn't get into it. So I don't know what's going on there. I even talked with the co-administrator, who's the market manager, Jed Burns, and he can't get into the thing. So we'll continue to try to work on that. And again, if you ever see anything on Facebook where I'm giving my opinion under the KBFT logo, that is a mistake. I apologize for ever. I do not ever want to represent what I say as the company position of Alpha Media. It is not. Again, Kevin, I got Mad Dog Kevin Crimmins. Again, I think we're fortunate to have a talk show in a town this size. It's the only talk show in the state in
for
a town
sure.
this size. And frankly, WHO used to have a pretty good lineup there when Jan Michaels,
Yep.
but it sucks now. They're not good. I was never a big fan of Simon, but when it was Steve Dace and then Jan in the morning, that was a great lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to catch him
with
once in a while.
Rush in between.
Yep. Speaking of KVFD and your Facebook page, I saw your petition was posted on your page on KVFD's page.
Well, I posted it. I found it online.
I'm glad that you did that.
Yeah.
I commend you for that.
Well, there's another effort to get me booted out because I've done something. I don't know.
No, I
Bad
commend
breath.
you for doing that because I think that's exactly what you should do. I read. Anyway, I clicked on that and read it. It was the weirdest thing. It was just weird. It was a weird read.
Listen, I got nothing against Justin Meyer.
Don't know who he is. Don't know him.
I never met it. Well, the only time I ever saw him in person is when he was running for city council. A couple of years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah.
And I saw him there, but I didn't go up and talk to him. I didn't talk to any candidates that night. But I wanted, and if that's his position, fine. But I think there's some vague.
It wasn't exactly, but that's what I mean. I read that, and I'm not exactly sure what the position was.
I wasn't either.
I really wasn't, and in fact, I'd made a comment on it. That was a weird thing, and somebody else commented on it. Well, weird is a good description.
Yeah, apparently, he thought I was dinging him and other people with mental illness. Hell, I've been crazy most of my life, Kevin.
Well,
The
I
nuns
know,
thought I was
and that's a ridiculous. That's ridiculous to try to push that idea. That
I would never do that to him.
I know that. I've known you for a long, long time, and I know that.
Yeah.
I went to bat for you on that. I said,
Thank you.
I know him very well and known him for years. And believe me, I could tell you one thing: Mike Devine would not make light of mental illness.
Absolutely. I was never one of those. And I tried to protect. They call them mentally disabled people now, but there were mentally disabled kids who took a lot of ridicule back when I was a kid. Got pushed around. I always tried to defend them.
Well,
I mean, here are these bullies picking on a helpless kid. Really, just some poor kid that was trying to play with us, and he couldn't keep up. I mean, he had this mental disability, and I always thought that even back then, I thought that was real cruel to pick on some helpless person.
well, who does that?
Well, there were that kids did.
Well, I mean, the bullies and the kids that got laid off from Iowa Beef, but in their adult life. But the thing that really I was just like thinking, okay, there's no credibility here. Is when he said that he had listened to you for about a year and never heard you say anything racist.
Yeah.
Then why did you say that in a petition? That backhanded insinuation was really dirty, I thought.
Well, that was and there's always racist. Being called a racist now is like being called a pedophile. You're just done. Who wants to be,
Well,
it has the same emotional impact.
not to me.
Oh,
You can call me. Hey, that only bothers racists. It only bothers a racist to be called a racist.
no, I approach people as individuals. If you're a good man, a good woman, hey, I'll talk with you, stand with you all day long. If you're not, the hell with you.
Right.
And that's if.
Well, like I said, it only bothers a racist to be called a
That's
racist.
right. There's
Hey, what did you learn at your racist revival that you went to?
I learned I was racist.
Did you? Well, how could you not?
Now, come on. You're talking about Charles Clayton's thing. I don't think that was a racist revival. I disagree with Charles Clayton vigorously on these things. I think this diversity training thing is a hustle, for one thing, and
Well, it is a hustle.
and trying to shame white children. I don't. That's just not a good way forward. It isn't. By the way, this is what you should. I tune into Black Talk Radio sometimes. I particularly listen to Joe the Black Eagle Madison on Sirius. Joe's about my age, and he talks about things that I remember. But there's another guy by the name of Charlemagne the God who I watch on YouTube. And Charlemagne's a much younger guy. He's kind of part of the rap generation. He's the guy that had Joe Biden as a guest, and Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me,
Oh, yeah, okay.
you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Yeah,
Here's Snow White Biden. Well, if you don't, and he even affected a little bit of a southern
right.
accent. You want to talk about somebody?
The guy that didn't want to turn education system into a racial jungle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You talk about somebody with implicit bias, if they're kind of leaning on a little bit on a southern accent, because he's got primarily a black audience. You have implicit bias.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever. Anyway, Charlemagne on occasion interviews rap artists and other genuinely tough guys, and they will tell him, Charlemagne, shut the hell up before I smack you.
Why? Referring to what? Is he? Why would I don't understand what your point is.
Charlemagne's interviewing, and he was interviewing a rapper not too long ago, Benny. I'm not familiar with the black world. I'm a handicapped white person, older white guy. I don't know much about the rap world in the hip hop world, but he was interviewing an artist. And this artist, he wasn't a fake tough guy like some of the rap artists were. He really was kind of a from the streets, street fighting man type of guy.
Right.
And Charlemagne was, trying to ask him personal questions like, did you do this right, or did you do that right, or weren't you at fault in this situation? The guy just looked at him and said, "Shut up, man."
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Charlemagne, shut up.
And that's exactly what you should do to someone that calls you a racist.
That was my
I
point.
mean, it is exactly.
Hey, just shut up. You know what you're talking about.
Shut up, racist.
You don't know me. You don't know anything.
Yeah, the fact that you're calling me a racist shows that you're a racist.
This is one of those weird periods of time when we are exalting people who get on social media, even though they may have a room temperature IQ, and shout racist or something, oh yes, and you get all these likes, and it's a social media world. I didn't realize for a long time that the Facebook and Twitter is really the world that some of these younger people live in. Now I'm on playing around myself. I'm a troll, frankly. I troll liberals and bomb them. But I just it's not my world. Once I turn off the iPad and walk out the front door of my house, I recognize where I am right away.
Right. I finally figured out. I have learned something about all this business. Is that I did learn that there is an example of white privilege.
Okay. Oh, I don't deny it, for one thing.
Well, I don't necessarily deny it, but I don't embrace it either.
I disagree with the definition as given to us by the woke tribe.
Well, see, I guess that's the thing is, I got there's a lot of white people living in the Appalachians that would disagree with you that they are privileged, but that Rachel Dolezal.
See, there you go.
See that now. I was watching.
What she said when she was caught? She said, "Can't I self-identify?" This is a Snow White girl with blonde hair from Montana
with a bad spray tan and cornrows,
fake afro, and the whole.
Yeah,
thing.
Well,
hey, if a man could say he's a woman, she's got a point.
Well,
why can't she say, I'm black, I'm a black
girl? True, but it does show her that there is an example of white privilege because only white people can do that.
Only white people can do it. I mean, Kevin, you can say you're a pretty ballerina if you want to. Please don't tell me that, but you can say that.
Well,
it ain't gonna be true.
I've wanted to date you since I met you, Mike.
Well, I know you have, but it's a little weird. It's a little weird, frankly. And Kevin used to call me up on the phone and say he was in the bathtub thinking of me.
Oh yeah,
and then I was a beautiful man. I didn't want,
You are a beautiful man.
Well, I didn't want Kathy to go over to the house and slap the hell out of me.
Well, anyway,
that's hard on a woman's ego if she gets beat out by a guy like me.
Oh yeah, well, Anyway, that was my learning experience.
That was your allergic.
Yeah, I said, well, you know what? I guess I can agree with that. That is one thing that we can do.
See, you shouldn't say things like that. Now somebody will come up to your kids and say, "Here, your dad's gay." I mean, what?
Oh, my kids would laugh. My kids would get a kick out of that.
They would get a good guy.
They say, "Where'd you hear that? From your dad?" And I'll
He
tell you
was
what.
hitting on a guy on the radio.
Hey, I fully support gays. I fully support, which isn't really in line with my conservative nature, but that's, I'm fine with that. But Caitlyn Jenner, that's a weird situation. That's just a weird deal to me.
Well, he's still got the toolbox, right?
No,
Yeah, he does.
he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
No, he
He
doesn't.
didn't have the surgery.
Yes, he did.
All right, now I'm going to have to.
He had
look
full
these up.
gender reassignment surgery to the point where he had his Adam's apple shaved. No, so I looked it up.
When did this become normal?
No, I looked it
Here's
up,
this
but
guy, 6'2", 200 pounds, broad shoulders, big chest, big arms, everything. A male athlete, and all of a sudden he decides he's a pretty ballerina. What the hell is that?
I don't. You know what? And I don't have any problem with him doing that. Technically, it doesn't matter. It's just like Rachel, her spray tan and her cornrows didn't make her a black person. The fact that you lop off your business doesn't make you a female. I mean, your DNA is male. You are what you're born
And the
with.
woke crowd have no idea where the intellectual authority came from for trans rights at all. They just know that trans are oppressed and they're going to stand by the side.
But they're not. I mean, I don't understand it. Well, that's why we have equity now instead of equality.
Yeah,
Because we have equality. I mean, by law, we have equality.
right.
So they had to change that term. They had to change the dialogue and change the term, and now it's equity. So, which is ridiculous to me, but
Well, here it is. Bruce Jenner underwent. Now Caitlyn Jenner underwent cosmetic surgery and ultimately completed sex reassignment surgery in January 2017. Man,
so that means he lopped off the log.
Yeah, he dropped that.
Yep. And I said, I
Still
I
don't wanna
will
see him naked.
Well, no, but it's the whether you should refer to him as he or she. Technically, he's a he, but I will humor his delusion and call him a she. If he wants to be a she so bad that he'll go through that, then I'll refer to him as a she. I don't, it doesn't. Hey, whatever,
Well, there were people, and I'm certainly old enough. I hate to admit it, but I'm old enough to remember this. There were reporters who refused to call Muhammad Ali. They called him Cassius Clay all the time, and he would yell at him, "My name is Muhammad Ali. My name is Muhammad Ali."
Well, but you have every right to change your name, and you should.
As far as that is concerned, he joined the Islamic faith. I mean, he joined and he wanted an Islamic name, and he got it. So
well, I mean, it doesn't matter. I think you can change your name to George, but and you have every right to. And and your name is now George. Legally, your name's George. Right. Whatever.
Maybe it's not the right comparison.
No, because it doesn't break down to DNA. What you're born as. But now the woke crowd is saying that we can't assign sex at birth anymore. Is supposed to leave that off the birth certificate.
Yeah, bro. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to talking with you.
Hey, you bet, Mike.
5:00 in the afternoon, KBFT4.
This is Gary Rima, the voice of the UNI Panthers, and you can listen to exciting Panther sports right here on the Voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400, KBFT.
Lining up for gas. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. Shortages in some states feeling the impact of the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack.
Parts of the Southeast were expected to be among the first to feel the pain from the Colonial Pipeline shutdown as the line services states like Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and North Carolina.
Yeah, I would say it's up at least 30 cents a gallon.
But many gas experts and analysts say there is enough fuel. It's just that people are kind of panic buying.
I saw something on Twitter, and then when someone called me and confirmed it, I was like, okay, should probably get up. I try to think of it like the toilet paper thing. Like we said a little about toilet paper before you knew it was no toilet paper. So I wanted to come before I saw out of service signs on every single pump.
There are reports of lines at some gas stations. One man told me driving through Raleigh that many stations were simply out of gas. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
A warning to Hamas militants from the leader of Israel as rockets rain down on Jerusalem.
Earlier today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a statement to the Israeli people. He was really addressing the population here, saying that if this rocket fire continues, there will be a severe Israeli response. The Prime Minister wanted to make clear that this operation is just getting underway from his perspective.
Fox's Trey Yingst on the Israel-Gaza border. The exchange of fire between Israel and the Palestinians, the culmination of weeks of escalating tensions over Palestinian settlements in East Jerusalem. The UN Security Council is set to meet privately tomorrow to discuss the attack between Israel and Gaza. The Fulton County District Attorney says she will seek the death penalty against a man accused of killing 8 people, 6 of them women of Asian descent, in shootings at 3 Atlanta area massage parlors in March. Robert Aaron Long has been indicted on murder charges in 2 counties. The prosecutor says she will also seek hate crime charges against him. On Wall Street, the Dow minus 473, the Nasdaq lost 12, the S&P off 36. America is listening to Fox News.
Progressive Motorcycle presents Road Wisdom from the Motor.